This conversation is sponsored by CAPS, Health and Wellness.
This is what I know. We're all connected to one another, the earth and all her inhabitants. We thrive on these connections, real ones that touch our soul, fill our hearts and invigorate our mind. I have been so fortunate to experience this all my life, meeting extraordinary, ordinary folks who inspire and provoke. My name is Khadija Mhesen. Welcome to Adventures of the Soul Conversations. My hope is that they will fill your cup as they have filled mine.
I still feel that first breath I took, when I got up, like it was the first deep breath of my life. I have had probably, I don't even know how many conversations about what someone wears versus actually the yoga. And so I feel like it's irrelevant because it was so impactful for me and because I wanted to share it. I wanted to break down the barriers, and I wanted the student to be able to see themselves in me and for me to be able to see myself in the student. I wanted to be relatable to each other so we could have an open experience instead of this block or this barrier of like, I'm something other than you, something maybe above you as a teacher. I love what Mark Whitwell says as a teacher. He says, as the student-teacher relationship, he says, a teacher should be no more than a friend and no less than a friend. Does it matter what people wear? Absolutely not. But if you are very specific about what I should wear, that makes me a bit uncomfortable. If as a teacher I'm telling them that yoga is not a religion, but then I walk into a yoga studio and it's all painted with Hindu gods on the wall, I'm sending mixed signals. For me, yoga should strengthen your faith, whatever your faith is. Yogi Bhajan said when he came and started teaching in North America, he said, I didn't come here to collect disciples. So his whole intent was to train teachers. So Kundalini yoga, as with all yogas, the purpose is to raise your Kundalini energy. And that's tremendous power. And that isn't, a power over another person. That's your own personal power. That's I was referred to as like the greatness you're capable of. And so we say that that's the energy that we're not utilizing, we're not living to our full potential. And so empowerment, yes, because we're limited by the mind, the mind will spin stories. It'll tell you you can or you can't. And whatever you believe will be right, will be your reality. The yoga helps us to bypass the thinking mind. So we get into our bodies so we can change the mind, and it happens by raising this energy. When you raise this energy, you change your perception. You change how you see the world. You become awake and aware, and you stop blaming others for what's happening in your life, and you take personal responsibility for your life, and that affects tremendous change. So that's power. You have control. You take back control of your destiny. You get back in the driver's seat of your life, and it's limitless.
Yeah. I listened to an interview with Guru Singh and Ritual, and he said something going back to running a marathon and becoming enlightened, is that all these activities that involve the lungs, the lung is heart-centered. It's because it surrounds the heart. So yeah, you're cultivating that. So any I guess I am assuming that this applies to any cardiovascular.
Any activity that puts you in that state of flow is what does it, where all sense of time disappears, and then you're really at your best, and then the creativity flows, and then you're not limited by your mind and the wild thoughts it has. You're in a whole other place, in this place of limitless possibility. And not only that, also strength and courage, because you're building that energy at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think Kundalini yoga, the path, is a faster track?
I think that one of the biggest differences is because when you're doing Kundalini yoga, you get into a very simple movement. Like the movement might be you're shaking your arms, you're shaking your body for several minutes. So there's no thought required. Once I get myself into the movement, I sort of lose myself. Whereas if I'm in a hatha or vinyasa practice, I have to pay more attention to my physical alignment. So, if I get myself into a warrior two, I'm sort of going between being in my body and and looking at the outside. I want to see where the position of my hand. I want to see my knee over my ankle. So I keep pulling myself out of this place that I lose myself in when I'm doing a repetitive motion.
Do you think it keeps you floating and not necessarily grounded?
That depends on I would say, the teacher and the student. If I want to make myself completely ungrounded and spiral out of control, I can certainly do that, but that's not how I teach it and deliver it. You want to elevate the energy and you want to ground the energy, right? So we have these awakenings. We become aware of this powerful energy inside us, and then we have this energy when it changes your brain chemistry, and you have these insights. You want to take those insights and ground the energy and use them to make your life work. So you have to be working with the two currents of energy, what they say, enlightenment and manifestation. So that, you're right, grounding is a very important element here.
Do you think there's a risk that some of the practices are keeping people not grounded? And
I think people go after what they want. If I want to trip out, I can make myself trip out. I think if I want to create issues for myself, I can. Why am I practicing the yoga? I'm practicing the yoga so my life can work, so my relationships can work, so I can be healthy, so I can be well. I'm not chasing some spun out feeling. I happen to feel really good when I practice, but I have no need to chase that, because my bliss comes in my heart and my home. It doesn't come from some trippy experience.
And I know that journaling is a big component of what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's also another way of keeping, grounding and
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you journal every day?
I probably not every day, but close to every day. I'm trying to do it more and more, because I find that it really helps to slow me down. So I do find it to be another form of meditation. I think it's very powerful.
So, and obviously you're high energy. I mean, the number of trainings and workshops and your travel schedule, you don't
There's
stop.
a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. Yeah. How much downtime do you get? Like, I'm curious about what your days look like. I'm going to ask you really nitty-gritty details about your day, but I'm curious, when is your downtime? What time do you go to bed? Because I know you're an early riser. So what does your day look like?
I think my days honestly look very different than I want to say, I don't want to encourage people to have their days like mine.
I don't think anybody can do what you do. Trust me.
Yeah, I have varied responsibilities, which include leading my team. We have 70 people involved in Semper Viva Yoga, so that's very real. I have 2 daughters that live on 2 different time zones, so I like to connect with them, even if it's just a quick text exchange to connect with them. I have a husband I try to fit into that mix, and we also work together, so we have to, talk business and squeeze some time for personal life. And then at the same time, and then I teach classes almost every single day. And number one, though, to make any of that work, I could have only one thing to do in a day, and it could still be stressful if I don't do my inner work. So that really applies to everybody. It's very dangerous to talk about being busy in a way, because somehow in our minds we say, oh, it's important. We can easily get caught in that trap. It's like, oh, I'm important because I'm busy, and I like to just pull that apart. It's like, it's not necessarily a good thing to be busy, and so and we should stop kind of valuing it as something, as glorifying it. Thank you, that's the word. Because then we teach people that that's okay. Really, we need to simplify what we're doing, and we all have things we need to do. You've got to look after your kids, you have to look after your family, you have your job, you have your responsibility, but we also have to take the pressure down. We need to slow down, and if we slow down, I really believe if we go slower, we will accomplish more. And to go slower and to figure out what it is you really need to do, those few moments of grounding yourself in the morning, if you can't do a full practice of some sort of personal practice, for you it might be prayer, it might be a few minutes of meditation, it might be a few rounds of sun salutations. If that's the first thing I do in the morning, then I get out of my crazy mind spin of like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and run, and I get really clear on, okay, this is what's important for me to do, and I'm going to put all of this aside. And then whatever I choose to do, because I also want to be able to look at as I choose to do this. This might not look like everybody else's schedule, but I've chosen this. I've brought these things into my life, and so it's up to me to manage this, not only time-wise but energetically. Where am I spending my energy, and to constantly reevaluate that, so that there is never this sense of burnout. Being tired is one thing, like getting to bed at night, like, oh wow, I'm like, last night I remember lying down and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy to be lying down in bed.
I love that.
Bed is so nice. That's one thing. And there's another thing, to feel just spent, just emotionally drained. That's a whole other thing. And so that's the place I never want to go again. Being tired, or just kind of that exhilarated, exhausted. Cool, I'll take that any day.
So do you? This is one of the questions I was asked to ask you, and it's a question that people ask me all the time. How do you make time to meditate every day? And I feel like meditation nowadays is like yoga 20 years ago. It's kind of taking center stage, and everybody's talking about it, which is awesome. And there is also that anxiety and fear, because it's unknown and it looks like it's so time consuming. And there's also expectation tied to it, because the assumption is, when you look at people meditating, you think, oh my God, they're blissed out, there's no way I can do this. When in actual fact, everybody goes through exactly the same thing. So tell me first about your own personal practice, how you make time for your own personal practice, and how do you share the highs and lows?
Mm-hmm. So my own personal practice looks completely different every single day. So that's the kind of one of the funny things about me, is like, I'm both disciplined and undisciplined, meaning like there's the discipline of daily practice, but it isn't, say, 20 minutes every morning and 20 minutes every evening. Some of the rules they tell you in yoga, like to meditate in exactly the same place, exactly the same time. Every single day my meditation looks different. This morning it was with mantra. Yesterday it was silent. It could be walking through, when we go to one of the Gulf Islands here, it could be a walking meditation through the forest, either focusing very deliberately on the breath or using a mantra. It could be anything. And so I need the variety to keep me interested, to keep doing it. That's who I am. But it also is, and the time changes. And the time changes, same thing. Like, I'll just flow with it. I'll just, when I'm traveling to different places, the best thing I can do is make sure I don't drop my routine, not even for a day. And if you can do a physical practice, the minute you land, or go out for a long walk first and then come and do your practice, that's very grounding. Best medicine for jet lag. You'll never experience jet lag again. Yeah. And so it isn't a conscious thought anymore to meditate. It's like when someone does, if you've ever done those 40-day challenges, or a lot of yoga studios have 30-day challenges. Yeah. Once you do yoga every single day, that many days in a row, it's like your body takes over. It becomes like a craving, right? You don't have to think about, do I want to do this? You want to do it. Like, physically, it feels so amazing. It becomes a habit. It becomes a positive habit. So it's the same thing with meditation. If you do, in the kundalini tradition, we do 40-day meditations, and where it's very interesting, because if you miss one day, you have to go back to day one. And so when you do the meditation that many days consistently, then again it becomes this craving. You don't have to think about it. You've built up your willpower, and also this desire to be in that stillness. And then for people who are struggling with meditation is not necessarily a blissful experience. In fact, it's not a blissful experience. It's a very challenging experience that gives you moments of bliss. Just little fleeting moments. Not even, maybe a second is too long. But it's so rich in how it makes you feel. It's like all of a sudden the entire pressure, like all the pressure is off, and everything's going to work out. And you know it so clearly in that moment. And that enough, just once you get that feeling, is enough to take you back.
But these questions actually came from people who have done the challenge and who have fallen off the wagon. That's the other thing. Sometimes I feel, and this is something I have encountered, I don't know if you have, People close to you who watch your journey have their own stories, obviously, about your journey and what's happening to you. And there's a part of them that becomes a little bit aggressive toward you and judgmental because you touch something in them, you trigger something. And that has to do with probably the guilt and the shaming process that they go through themselves, because they wonder, why can't we do this? Why can't I be disciplined? Why can't I do this every day? And then they spiral into this circle, this spiral of shame. And then there's the assumption that it's just one pill. You have to do exactly the same. Like, you have to do exactly what Gloria does, and then you'll be like Gloria.
Yeah. I try very much when I'm with students to help them understand, or to have the open conversations like, look, we're in this messy journey together. It's life, and life is going to always throw us challenges and always try and knock us off course. And then what happens is, and we get knocked off course, but the more we practice, the less we let ourselves fall away for too long. Like, for instance, if things become stressful, one year I might, not now, but at some point I might have let my practice go for a month until I felt so bad, and then I'd come running back to the practice. Now, the more that happens and the more you understand what the good medicine is, you don't let yourself stay away that long. You say, okay, maybe you missed your meditation yesterday, but you're going to be sure you do it today because you know how important it is to you. So it's just, and also for students to say, to compare themselves, it's like, I've been doing this for over 20 years. So you also have to look at it. It's been an over 20-year journey. So we're in different places, and it doesn't really matter. If you keep doing it, it's going to stick. It's going to stick, and in your way. And that's the other thing I tell them to honor is, like, just because somebody said get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to meditate doesn't mean that is what you should do. And I say that because when I was raising my children, my oldest, for example, had chronic ear infections. So it was not uncommon for me to have to get up 6 times a night. Now, if I'm awake 6 times a night, and then I wake up to do my meditation, and then I have to go to work for 12 hours and then come back like that, I absolutely need the medicine of meditation, but I will have to do it if I do it at 7 a.m., does it make me, not as spiritual or not a good person? Makes me a better mother, because then I'm not, then I'm going to have the energy to manage my home. The meditation should be there, but I have to find my way.
Yes, absolutely. And there's no separation between you being a mother and being a business owner. You're just one person. And that's the other thing, we talk about, core values or you. And are you talking, when people, ask, is this my professional self, or, like, you're one person. I don't know why we have to always have this dichotomy. I'm one person at work, I'm a parent, and I'm, a kundalini yoga teacher. We always separate. But maybe this helps us. I don't know what. But Gloria, also going back to a video of yours that I watched, I loved how you said dedicated practice and not obsessive practice.
Yes.
This is brilliant. Like, I've never seen it put into words like this. What made you say this?
Well, it's because when you say to dedicate to a daily practice, we have to honor that things come up for people. So even, I don't want people to then have guilt about not being able to go into the studio, for example, every single day and do an hour and a half class. When I get to go into the studio, it's wonderful. I have my community. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. But the next day, life has different plans for me. I have all these responsibilities. Does that mean I have to sacrifice my yoga? No, I still have the responsibility to connect with my higher consciousness, so that part of me is guiding my journey in life. And I don't have to be within the studio walls to do that. I can do that anywhere. I can do it in the shower if I decide to breathe consciously, if I decide maybe to use a mantra to quiet my mind. If that's all I've got, I mean, there's times in your life where you've got, parents in the hospital, children's needs, this, that, the other thing. If all I've got is that shower, I'm going to make it a conscious, spiritually elevating shower. I'm going to make it the best shower of my life.
Yes, absolutely. And do you think? I think also we're kind of become an obsessive race. No, everything is an obsession, and I think this obsession is linked to the spiral of shame as well. I'm having all these aha moments.
Yeah.
I'm having all these.
And where does it help? Yeah.
I'm having all these.
And where does it help people if you make them feel bad? Like my feeling is like if we help people feel good, they're going to be more motivated to keep feeling good. Where if we start shaming them or guilting them, and that was my experience. I felt very shamed for not doing a 2-hour practice, every 2.5-hour practice every single morning of meditation. I was at work for a minimum of 12 hours a day. I had small children in my home. I had sick parents. I needed sleep. I was up 6 times a night. I knew that the meditation was beneficial. I absolutely knew it, but my nervous system was completely fried from no sleep, like nothing. So yes, I know the meditation on its own is like in a way it's that deep healing quality of sleep, but I had to find a way to do it that worked with everything. That I had to be awake till at least 11 o'clock at night. That's how long it took me to get my day done. So from 4 till 11 and then up 6 times a night, it wasn't realistic.
Yes, and you share that, so people know that. So this is something you share, so your students hear that, and I think that they can relate to. Did you ever go back to the neighborhood where you worked? And did you go back to do something, with the community? I know you do a lot of community work.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we did, because I did a lot with addiction, we did a lot to support homelessness in this community. And so just through different charity type things. It's an important, addiction is a very big issue in our city. It's a huge issue in our city. And so, and obviously that's connected to the homeless population as well. And so, yeah, we've done some work there.
What about the hospital across the street from the pharmacy where you work?
The AIDS population, specifically with that population, I haven't gone back to work with, but yeah, life is long. We'll see where I go next.
Do you think yoga is a sustainable business?
I think it's an extremely challenging business. I think as a business person, I would say it's kind of a stupid business. In that, like, as a business person, it's like, this is stupid to try to earn your living doing this. And so my rational, if you just come at it from your rational mind, it's like, why would anybody want to work all weekends, all holidays, all statutory holidays for pay extra, massive amounts of rent for big spaces, all of that. From a business perspective, it's completely illogical. But but there's such a strong pull to share this. I didn't sit down and do a business plan about, will I open a yoga studio and I want to teach. All I knew was I needed yoga in my life. And then the next thing I knew is I need to share this with other people because it's so powerful.
So when you decided to share it, you didn't think of, you actually thought of having your own place. And what was the first studio?
Well, what happened for us, it was kind of funny. I started teaching for one of the kundalini schools, and I taught for them for a full year. And then I realized that I would not be able to teach for them because there was so much pressure to, at that time, they said if you didn't wear a head covering, you couldn't teach there any longer. And I said, well, I just can't. So I left and I continued to practice every single day. And at the time, I had my health food store. So it's Semper Viva started as a holistic pharmacy. I went from traditional pharmacy to vitamins and supplements. And then when I started yoga, I started sharing with videos. I started bringing the yoga videos into the store and started just sharing. And I found myself talking more about yoga than everything else. And then one day we had somebody from, it was the Canadian Health Food Association, had sent someone to photograph my husband and I because we were voted something like the most innovative health food store in all of Canada or something like that. Something that was kind of nice. And they took us outside the store, and I remember at that time just feeling so horrible because when I kind of hit the wall, I was already taking all the supplements. I was doing all the green juices. I was doing all that, and I felt like death. And it wasn't until I did the yoga that everything changed for me, because that brought in the whole mind, body, spirit piece, where I was focusing in my pharmacy life, in my time just with holistic nutrition. It was physical
outside,
and then outside in. And so I remember being photographed for this magazine saying to my husband, I never want to feel this horrible in my life ever again, because that it brought back, it flooded all that flooded memory of how I felt during the 7 years of the, or the pharmacy and all that. And then I looked across the street and there was one of the very first health food stores in our community was there. And I looked over across the street and I said to him, wouldn't it be cool if a little room opened up in there and we could open a studio? And he sort of looked at me like, okay, you're nuts. He says, but he didn't say anything. He went across the street later and he spoke to the landlord, and it turned out that they had a room to rent in the place across the street. So within a couple of months, we rented the room across the street, and that journey took off.
And it was just you teaching?
At that time I right away hired other teachers because I knew that Kundalini yoga is not going to appeal to everybody, and so I wanted people to have what would work for them. So if Kundalini yoga doesn't draw you, don't do it, or try it, but go and do something else. Do hatha, do vinyasa, do yin, there's all of these styles that are available. Start anywhere and try different things, try different teachers. I do believe that there is something for everybody. I really, really do believe that. It's just a matter of the student having the willingness to keep exploring.
And the student will have the willingness when they feel, I believe, or for me personally, when it's authentic. Whatever is being offered is authentic and not focused on what it looks like from the outside, or yeah.
On that note, I do want to say I feel, because we do train teachers as well, is to hammer home to the teachers is like we have a responsibility to do our own work, so that when we're with our students that we're teaching from the right place, so that stuff is channeling through us. We don't get caught up in our egos and other ugly things that can happen with the practice. So I want to put that very heavy responsibility on the teacher to stay committed to this path, so they can be that inspiration, so that they're not teaching from their ego, because we have the ability to make or break that student's opportunity to have yoga in this lifetime.
Absolutely, agreed, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Do you think, Gloria, because I visit Vancouver every summer, and then I get to go to yoga every single day. I love that I can go at any time and there's a class at any time. And I try everything and I love it. But it just baffles me. I walk into a class and there's 115 students in the class. And the reason I know that was because my nephew worked. So he used to tell me how many people walked in. And it just made me think about Vancouver, the city, and why it works. And there's something that works. Is it the yoga?
I think, honestly, because, I have experiences in lots of different cities. We don't have necessarily, like if you're, say, in, I don't know, in a city in Europe where the city might have the piazza or the central meeting, if you know where to go to find your friends, or say you're in a culture that every Sunday morning everybody's in church, you know where everybody is. Even if I don't want to go to church, I know if I go to the church, after church, I know where they're all going for coffee, so I know where to find people and be with people and be with community. And Vancouver is such a transient city. People are here with other families, they move here, they need to make new friends. So there's a loneliness, there's a hunger for connection. And so our yoga studios provide this place where if you go to a yoga studio, chances are pretty good, you're going to meet some nice people. People are going to be welcoming, and people are there to relax. And there isn't this aggression. They're there to calm down. So you're going to make fast friends. And I think that gives us that chance to come together as a community without religion, politics, all of those things. We just put all of that stuff aside and we just come together and unite with the breath and just breathe together. Just have a good breathe together.
Did I ever tell you my first experience in Vancouver? It took us a while to understand that, people genuinely are nice. I mean, generally, I think that was my first experience with Canadians, probably. I would walk into an elevator and think, oh, please, God, do not speak to me. I come from a culture where you don't speak to anybody. If it's a stranger, you don't talk to them. And I would keep my eyes on the ground and hope that nobody speaks to me. But then after a while, it just baffled me, because I thought it wasn't real. I thought it can't be real that people just talk to anyone. You talk to the person next to you on the bus. And I had that same experience when I first started yoga. I'd walk into a class and think, please God, do not let me to turn to my neighbor and tell my neighbor what I'm grateful for today. You know. And I know you do that a lot. I know you do that, and I think it's awesome. And you know, going back to that whole concept of community, because you touch upon this in your video as well. This whole thing about loneliness and people, you know, just lonely and hungry for community and human connection and this offline connection, because we spend so much time. Funny, we talk about online connection. I speak about online connection as I talk to you online. I think that's what we're hungry for. We are a race as well that is lonely, very lonely.
I agree. And the other thing is, I do believe that all our yoga is to be learned in the intimacy of life. You know, to be alone, to go off and meditate in a cave and to read my spiritual books and to chant my mantras. Very easy for me to be peaceful there.
Yeah.
But when you're confronted with your most intimate relationships with your partner, with your boss, with all of those things, if that's where your yoga is, right? And so so
and being, you know, spending time with family, I think that's when it challenges you. That's when you test your Zen state. Yeah, Gloria, I thank you so much. This has been so awesome, and I can never get enough. Is there anything I forgot to ask you that you feel like you need to
want to share? I mean, I think I say the same thing to all the time, is really to encourage people to commit to a regular practice, because you will never experience the true benefit of yoga until you have a regular, daily, consistent practice, and not the obsessive practice, but something every day. You need something. You need to fill yourself up before you can offer yourself up to the world. So
agreed, 1,000,000%, amen to that. And I hope that you will find time to come to the Middle East and make that your new destination. We're waiting for you. There's so many people needing that, so please do come visit. Thank you so much, Gloria. I really appreciate it, and I'll keep you posted. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right, my love.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.